This is Amanda from the 36th LD Dems. This is our endorsement interview with Laura Marie Rivera, who's running for Seattle School Board Director 4. Laura Marie, over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you all so much for your commitment to this process, especially on such a beautiful day. My name is Laura Marie Woods, and our future are too important to leave in the hands of a system that's not working. Let's be honest, if we had truly prioritized education over the past 20, 30, 40 years, our country would not be in the state that it's in today. And it's not just about test scores, it's about values, opportunity, and justice. I have to tell you, I did not come to the Thundering 36 for politics. I am here for the children, their education, and their future. As a mom of 4 Seattle public school students, a nonprofit leader, and the only educator in this race, I bring something our board has too little of: direct classroom experience. I've taught in overcrowded schools, arts and tech programs, special education, and inclusive classrooms. I know the difference between policy that sounds good and policy that works. Right now, our district is at a crossroads. Families and educators are frustrated, the budget is broken, trust is low, and too often, decisions are being made without truly listening to the people most affected, especially students. Here's what I'll prioritize. Number one, fixing the foundation. Budget, safety, and student wellness, these are not optional. Number two, centering students in every decision. Each child comes with unique strengths, challenges, hopes, and dreams. We must build a system that honors them all. And number three, investing in what helps students thrive. This means art, sports, dual language immersion, advanced math, hands on technical programs, special education, and student wellness, with particular support for those furthest from educational justice. We have the future of our society sitting in our classrooms today. They deserve more than broken promises. They deserve a school system that sees them and sets them up to succeed. I'm Laura Marie Rivera for Seattle School Board, District 4. Thank you.
Excellent, with 2 seconds to spare. Great on timing. All right, our first question is going to be asked by Anita.
Why are you running for school board? What does equity in education mean to you? And how would you ensure equitable access to quality education for all children?
The reason I am so committed to public education is because I know without a shadow of a doubt that I would not be standing here before you without the skills and education that I received in our public schools. And we need to make sure that the students, especially those furthest from educational justice, are afforded those same opportunities for future success. I am the fourth of 5 children. Public education is the only way my siblings and I could have received a quality education. My father was a public servant. He made and managed the budget for Sacramento County. And my mother was an emergency room nurse. She worked the graveyard shifts so that she could still do all of the mom things with us during the day. My experience in public schools not only gave a solid academic foundation, it provided the inspiration and instruction for my future roles. The first play that I did was in second grade, a cheesy mashup between the Nutcracker and Velveteen Rabbit. Could my teacher have known that I would grow up to perform on a Broadway stage? I had my first teaching opportunity when I was still in middle school. I was an assistant for an art class. I was in a teacher program. By high school, I was in a teacher training program and teaching my own classes. And could they have known that I would continue in education and even teach a class at UW in my first quarter when we lived in Seattle? And the inclusion model from my high school has shaped my approach to formal education, advocacy, and my entire worldview. My school held the special education services for my district. I had the opportunity to learn sign language, which then afforded me the opportunity to serve as an interpreter. And I've continued to work with and advocate for our students receiving special education services. It is such important work that is so often forgotten here in Seattle Public Schools. Whether or not your child receives special education services, someone in their classroom does. And moving on to life after graduation, someone in your office or neighborhood or community will also rely on each of us being aware and inclusive of the reality that there are many ways to accomplish a goal. And all of this is to say that I am, and I will remain committed to public education.
Great, thank you. Our second question will be asked by Chelsea.
Hi, Seattle Public Schools has set an ambitious goal to operate on 100% zero carbon electricity by 2027, as outlined in their clean energy resolution. While significant planning and initial steps have been undertaken, the district faces challenges in meeting this target. What steps will you take to meet the target?
So this is one of the greatest things about SPS because for better and sometimes for worse, we are leading the country. In this case, the former board took the opportunity during the COVID shutdown to continue working on sustainable goals for the future. And I think it's also important to note that during this time period, our own District 4 did not have a director sitting on the board. Our last two elected directors have resigned for personal or other reasons, and we need someone that's truly committed to the schools, to the students, and to the service to continue in this role and advocate for our future students, and not to put too fine a point on it, the future of our planet. This volunteer role matters. As I said, I'm here for the students and will remain committed to their future, which of course includes the health of the planet. As for the steps to meet the target of this clean energy resolution, it's a very interesting framing of the question. As you may or may not be aware, the current board has adopted a very hands-off governance model, which leads to an interesting balance or imbalance, as it were. Monitoring is supposed to be part of the stated process, but it's done at the 30,000-foot level. My personal philosophy, and this is based in part on my Doctor of Education degree, which centers on the principle of educating the students as a whole and organizational change management. A key component to that management is being able to see things from both the balcony level and the dance floor levels. And unfortunately, SPS and their recently adopted model focuses solely on that zoomed out view. And this leaves far too much unexamined. You can actually see it in the broken links within this very policy, in the massive miscellaneous budget deficit, and you can definitely feel it in the way that families are left to interact with the district. So the main point is that I 100% agree with and support working toward that more sustainable future, but I'm calling out the way that current board members are approaching it, specifically their lack of accountability. It's just not working. There are 4 director positions on the ballot this year, and this is an opportunity for change. We can't continue to sit here and watch them create toothless policies while squandering the educational opportunities for our kids that are in the classrooms right now.
Great, thank you. Our next question will be asked by Anita.
Seattle Public Schools are facing a budget crisis. What are practical and tangible steps you are taking and or will take to solve this? And would you support school closures as part of this solution?
This is not solely an SPS issue. There is an entire culture shift that is needed. I've long said that the district, city, state, and federal levels need to communicate and coordinate better. The best time for this was ages ago, and the second best time is now. We're already seeing some of it this year. I appreciate that the legislature addressed the discriminatory cap on special education services. There was some money added to the budget for student supplies that we otherwise would be relying on teachers to purchase from their paychecks. But this isn't enough. And it certainly does not address the gaping hole in our budget. And it will not protect from the potential federal debacle that is in the works. Not only is the Trump administration working to dismantle the Department of Education, but the Supreme Court is hearing cases on vouchers and public dollars going into religious schools. This not only affects the Oklahoma schools in the case, it will come right here to our own Washington state constitution. And we haven't even gotten to the fact that SPS is operating over 100 school sites across the city. In a recent attempt to fix the budget, the current board members, in partnership with the central office, released an incredibly unthoughtful plan to close 1/3 of our elementary schools. This proposal was so poor that not only did it not close the budget, it created significant stress and turmoil for the students and families that we're supposed to serve. We have to be mindful that our communities, our school communities are the center of our students' lives and the first point of civic engagement for most of our families. If the district is not going to address the gap in other ways, they need to be a hell of a lot more thoughtful when seeking these harsh solutions. There was no community engagement. They neglected to address the closures using their own equity lens, and they literally forgot about special education. Their proposal suggested closing the deaf and hard of hearing school and closing the school housing our most medically fragile students. Not one district employee or current board member noticed this before presenting the plan. It is shameful.
Thank you. Our last prepared question will be from Chelsea.
The current federal government is hostile towards public education. These federal attacks have been compounded by ongoing challenges at a state level and new initiatives that undermine student civil rights. How do you anticipate navigating and leading to address these complex and dynamic challenges to student civil rights, laws, and funding?
Yes, the current state of the federal government is alarming and just disappointing. As I said, if we'd been investing properly in public education, I don't believe we as a country would be in the situation that we're in today. But what can we do about it right now, right here in Washington? I believe we can do a lot. We are fortunate to live in a state with strong and experienced leadership that is committed to protecting Washingtonians and protecting our students. Like many of you on this call, I was proud to campaign with Nick Brown and Bob Ferguson. While we may not agree with all of their choices all of the time, I think we can agree that they were and still are the best choices for these roles. And of course, it was thrilling to campaign for Kamala. We know that our country would not be facing these awful situations and harmful executive orders if we had been able to reach enough voters in those swing states or inspire the people that just didn't make it to the ballot box. All this to say, our student civil rights are non negotiable. As a proud mom, we need to do all that we can to not only educate, but protect our students, with special care for the students furthest from educational justice and our own most vulnerable students, including my own. This is the protective mama bear lens that I bring to not only my role as a mother, but my roles as a teacher and as a leader. One thing I said to our chair as she stood up on the podium next to our new attorney general, it's not just standing there. Sometimes that is literally our job, to stand next to, behind, or in front of the people that we love. This is my commitment to my family, to our public schools, to our local, state, and federal levels of government. And I do believe in working toward the Constitution's promise of a more perfect union. And I know that I am doing my part, and I appreciate you all coming here to facilitate these interviews and doing your part. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's the end of our prepared questions that we've sent to you. I'll now open it up if there's anyone with any particular follow-up questions for you. And we'll start with Anita. Go ahead.
Sorry, Anita, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. How soon to notify parents of an event like police on campus at school? How soon?
So you would think that in this age of digital technology that we would be knowing about these things immediately, but that is not the way that it is working out in our schools. So often I read about a lockdown, I see it on Facebook, I hear it on the radio before our district has initiated that text chain. And I know there was an incident a few years ago that didn't even make the reporting. My kids told me about it at the dinner table that evening. And it started as just a normal conversation talking about how was your day? And it came around to, it wasn't even the highlight of their day, but it came around to the part when they told me about the lockdown that happened at their school. And what happens in one of those lockdowns is that it comes on the loudspeaker and it says, lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. This is not a drill. Lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. This is not a drill. And this is what the kids hear, and this is what happens in their school. This happened during a lunch period where they were not in their regular classrooms, and every teacher at their school gathered all of the students. They brought them in, they brought them into the classroom, they locked the doors, they shuttered the windows, and they huddled in the corner with a teacher that may or may not even know my child, creating that barrier. And this is how our dinner conversation went. And this is what I heard. And it lasted for a few minutes. And fortunately, it was a stupid mistake. There was no threat that day at my child's school. It wasn't even happening, but it triggered the thing. It told them it was not a drill. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. And then you hear about it and you just know that this is the reality that our kids are facing. And we know that the district is not even notifying people. They never sent that heads up to the parents that this is what happened and this is the stress that your children and their educators experience today. And just earlier this year, there was a shooting at one of our schools that was not notified for a few days. And, it was a small school with a special education population, and they just didn't report it. And it's just unconscionable to me. These are our greatest treasures that we send to school, and the district is not being responsive and caring in that way. So the answer to your question is immediately. Obviously, they need to contain the problem, and then they need to let the families know as immediately as possible.
We have a question from Chelsea.
Yeah. How do you feel about PTA funding? And do you think it works well in our district? Specifically, do you think it offers an equitable access to funding for all students?
So PTA funding is a big topic, I presume everywhere, but also especially here in Seattle. And there are a lot of thoughts on it. The Seattle Public Schools has a policy that PTAs can grant up to $250,000 a year to the school. And weirdly, what I thought would be included in PTA would be things like construction paper or a sound system for the gym or costumes for the play, things like that. But what it actually goes to pay for are things like our nurse, our librarian, our reading specialists, and a lot of the people that are required to make a healthy school run. Because otherwise, we would have a part-time nurse, we would have a half-time librarian, or a point 0.2 person music or art specialization. And so the fact that we rely on that funding from our parents, and most specifically from the free labor of mothers, is a very backward setup for the system. And the saddest part is that the district is now relying on those funds to be provided by the PTAs.
Thank you. I don't know. I don't see any more hands at the moment. I'll just give a couple seconds, but otherwise what I'll do is ask you a follow-up question of if there's anything that you'd like to mention that we didn't ask you about or that we didn't cover that you think is important that we know. I'll give you time to cover that, or yeah, or anything else you didn't have a chance to finish.
I will say first and foremost, just thank you all for including the school board in your endorsement process. This is such an interesting role in that so many people never see it and never think about it. And then the ones that we do talk to, I can't tell you how many times I have been told, oh, I don't have kids, I don't vote for school board. Well, the thing is that Seattle Public Schools is spending $1 billion of your taxpayer budget. And on top of that, we have the future of our society sitting in our schools right now. So maybe we really ought to be thinking about public education and what is going on in our Seattle schools and how we can make them different and better. You all did ask about school closures, and I will say one of the other things on that topic is that when Seattle Public Schools initially released their list, at the top of the list was every option school in the district. And if you are concerned about things like dual language immersion, project-based learning, advanced math, or any of those other fun things throughout the district, you must have options within the district. And the worst part is that when applying the equity lens and considering those students furthest from educational justice, when we remove those options, we have removed all sense of choice and any option on education for those families. And the families that can and want to invest in private education will do that. And the families that cannot will be left in Seattle Public Schools with no options. And that is something that I would definitely want to avoid.
Great. Thank you. That concludes our endorsement interview. So I'm going to stop the recording.